you're back, or I hope you're back. If you haven't seen part one of this project, stop, go listen to that, and then come back to part two. It'd make more sense for you if you do it that way. We've been talking about what matters to you, choosing 6 things in your life right now that have importance, it matters to you. You know, it matters think of it this way. If something disappeared from your life right now that you would miss so much, that should tell you something about whether or not it's important to you and that it matters to you. So that might help you think of that. Think of something that you really love in your life, and then you think, okay, now if I woke up tomorrow and it was gone, would I really, really miss it? Is it really, really that important to me? Hey, there's a bunch of stuff, if I woke up in the morning and it was gone, I wouldn't even care, right? But boy, there are some things in my life that never change. They are important to me, you know. And so what I do is I try to appreciate the things that I like right now, the things that are important to me. I try to help make them real, maybe help them along. To me, that's important. So once again, you may use some of these because you may really appreciate them and they matter to you, but you don't have to use them because I use them. I want you to use them because if you use them, because they really are important to you, okay? And so, anyway, once again, if you've got your board or your grid that we did in part one, I want you to start working on these 6 little drawings that represent what we're talking about today. If that, I hope I'm making sense, okay? So, anyway, got your materials, got your ideas, got your thinking cap on, maybe got your imagination spinning a little bit. So let's go ahead and I'm going to finish off this, and we're going to talk a little bit about something that you may not even know. It's kind of an art history lesson that I think is so fascinating. So anyway, let's get to it, okay? So our inspiration word today is or not a word, but phrase, what matters to you. But I think it's really interesting. And a moment ago I was talking about some history of art. You know, people have been making art as long as there's been humans on earth. They have been making art of some kind, right? And so up until the 14th century, keep in mind, we live in the 20th century. So that was 6 centuries ago. But in the 14th century, there was something going on in Europe and in Asia at the same time that was called the Renaissance. And the Renaissance was this, oh my gosh, it was like art flourished. I mean, it was everywhere. There were a lot of kings and queens and religious figures that had money that helped artists create this enormous amount of art that took place. It was like, in history, it's like known as the Renaissance because so much of the great art was built by and created during this period of time in the 14th century. But guess what? Before the Renaissance, before that, artists were considered craftsmen. They were considered like bricklayers or people who built houses or made horseshoes for the horses. It wasn't like art, like, ooh, it's really art. No, people who could draw and stuff like that, they went to school to study how to create art like they did hundreds of years before. It was only at the end of the Renaissance where people, artists, could come up with their own ideas, their own creativity, their own concepts of things they wanted to do creatively, right? So up until the end of the Renaissance, it was like that would be like us going online and looking for a plumber, right? And you'd go and you'd look it up, and a plumber would come to your house. Well, it was kind of that. Of course, they didn't have Google back then, but that's what people did. People that had money that wanted a portrait of their family or something, they would go to the schools and go, I want an artist to paint my family, and I kind of want it in the style that was there at the time. And they would go in and they would do their thing. There was really kind of not a lot of imagination, at least kind of the imagination that we think of now, right? But anyway, it was like this, it blows me away. When I first found out that up until the end of the Renaissance of the 14th century, it was like considered a kind of a manual job, like, digging ditches and laying, concrete to build new roads. It wasn't like this high and mighty, ooh, it's art, that kind of a thing. I always just thought that was so cool. And so when I talk about originality or concepts, those were personal things. An artist would paint something and they would put themselves and what they liked and what they wanted into it. Because before that period of time, you were just a guy with a paintbrush and a pencil that could draw and paint real well. Isn't that weird? Because today we think of artists as real creative, as coming up with things new. And there was a period of time for a long, long time, centuries ago, where that really just wasn't the case. Anyway, I just thought that was so fascinating that there was a time when artists were just not really revered as something special, that art was special. But anyway, so concepts, which means your personal ideas. I want to capture my ideas in this painting, right? That's what that means. And of course, originality is something that you bring to that piece. You may draw a tree. A lot of artists draw trees, but when you draw a tree and you change it and you put it to what you want, that's originality. And that's what all artists are looking for. So anyway, okay, we got that. So I'm going to make my earth, because I tell you, to me, it's really, really important to love our earth, And again, I'm just going to kind of make some fake land masses on this thing, just to kind of get it going, right? There we go. And then instead of going to, because we don't have much time here, I just started making just these kinds of figures. And if you want to make one like this, to make it a girl, I put triangles down like that. See what I did? Just to make it look like they've got a dress, and you could put hair on them too if you want. And again, my family. Most of my family's gone, but I do have some very, very important people still in my life that's family. And so you put that down, right? And hey, and for those of you who have really, really big families, then you're going to be needing to draw a lot of stick figures, right? because I want these to represent the things that are important to you. And of course, art has always been a really, really important thing for me. So I just kind of represented it by art as a couple of art tools. One of them is a paintbrush, and another one is a pencil, right? A number 2 pencil. That's my favorite pencil. And learning. I use the book as an example of learning. And again, you know and I know that we learn all the time. We just don't learn out of books. In fact, think about it. For most of mankind, human civilization, you know, as long as we've been on Earth, human beings, we didn't learn in schools and we didn't learn from books. We learned through experiencing the world, being out in the world, and learning how things work in the world. So, but I just used, you know, a book to represent this learning. You should learn something new every day, right? So, let's see. How are you doing out there? Have you gotten your 6 things that matter? I hope you have 6 things that matter. You probably have even more, right? You could probably do 3 or 4 of these, because there's a lot of things that matter to me. Like my dogs. I love my dogs. I love animals, right? If I had to do it all over again and choose a profession, I would either have become an astrophysicist, which I couldn't because I'm terrible at math, or I would maybe be a veterinarian or something like that. I really, really love animals, and I know a lot of you out there do too. So anyway, don't stay true to this. Use your imagination. We have a concept, and it's not what I think is important or what matters to me. It's what you think. What you believe that is important to you is just as important as my stuff. Just because you're young doesn't mean it doesn't have worth. Okay? So listen, it's about time to stop this project today. I want to thank everybody for coming in and doing the project with me today. Keep that in mind. Figure out what's important to you and what matters to you. It'll help you, it'll help guide you to more things that maybe are really important or maybe just a lot of fun. Okay? So I want to give a shout out to the Arts Council of Oklahoma City for allowing me to come in here and do these things for you. And hopefully next fall we will be back in schools in real time. I can't wait. Anyway, take it easy. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.